The Tuesday, August 17th, 2021 meeting of the Eden Prairie City Council is now called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get started, just a brief announcement about Open Podium. Open Podium is an opportunity for Eden Prairie residents to address the City Council on issues related to Eden Prairie City government prior to each City Council meeting, which usually occur on the first and third Tuesdays of each month, except during summer schedules. If you wish to speak at Open Podium, please contact the City Manager's office at 952-949-8412 by noon of the meeting date with your name, your phone number, and the subject matter so we can be better prepared for you. If time does permit, after scheduled speakers are finished, the mayor will open the floor to unscheduled speakers. Open Podium is not recorded or televised. If you have any questions about Open Podium, please contact the City Manager's office. In the City of Eden Prairie, the City Council serves as the Housing Redevelopment Authority. Some cities do that differently. So we, the 5 members of the council, also are the HRA group of people. So I'll be having an HRA meeting within the City Council meeting. So I call the HRA meeting to order. And the first item is to approve the minutes of the HRA meeting held on December 1st, 2020. Are there any questions prior to that, or I'll entertain a motion?
I'll move to approve the HRA minutes from December 1st, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. All right, the second order of business is, and the reason for the HRA meeting tonight is to adopt a resolution approving modification of tax increment financing plan for the TIF District number 24, Paravel. Mr. Getchell, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, Mayor, really quickly, I just want to state that this is a project and a TIF district that you approved back in 2019, and the reason that we're bringing it back is a modification to the plan due to the slight delay in the construction of the apartment building. This is part of the Presbyterian Homes area redevelopment that you're familiar with, Flying Cloud Drive, Prairie Center Drive near CVS, the major development there. So we have an item where we need to update the TIF development agreement due to the timing change of construction with the project and changing the years of increment received or distributed.
Great. Council, any questions? So if you do make the motion, there's the third bullet on the back page. So would
I
somebody
move to adopt the resolution.
make the motion? Go ahead. Sorry, you were anxious.
I move to adopt the resolution adopting modification of the tax increment financing plan for tax increment finance district number 24, Paravel, approve, authorize execution of amendment and restated tax increment development agreement for Paravel, approve and authorize assessment agreement for Paravel.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further conversation? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn the HRA meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn the HRA meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now we're going to jump back into the City Council meeting. So for the agenda and other items of business, does anyone have anything to add this evening to the agenda as written? No one. I would like to add 3 items under 14A council member reports. One on a question or report about the airport, one on tree removal on Anderson Lakes as it relates to our tree replacement ordinance, and then one special that I'll keep quiet until we get there. Acknowledgement, recognition of a staff member. All right. With that, is there a motion to approve the agenda as revised?
Move to approve the agenda as revised.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anybody have any questions about either of the minutes from either the council workshop held on July 13th or the city council meeting held on July Were you raising your
I
hand?
just want to quick add something.
Great,
Mayor, I'll let
thank
you
you.
finish. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, anyone else have questions? Mr. Getchell?
Yeah, there was a typo in the minutes. There was like someone had their finger on the keyboard for a really long time, and there was like a long series of O's. So we corrected that typo.
Sure, it wasn't meant to be. Oh.
It was not actually. It was Case said no, and the O
God.
went across all the way. So we took that
I
out.
didn't see the N at the
Yeah.
start of that. But,
So we've corrected that typo.
great. Anybody else have any corrections? So if not, can we put the two together into one motion? Somebody.
I will move to approve the city council and workshop minutes from Tuesday, July 13th, 2021.
Great. Is there a second? You really
Second.
did put them together. I was impressed there. Any further conversation, discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, no reports of advisory boards. The consent calendar, it's a little bit longer today, so any items that you wish to temporarily pull in question, or even any that you might want to vote on separately? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve of items A to O on the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed. All right, we have 3 public hearings this evening. I'm guessing everyone in the audience was not here for the consent calendar. So we'll move right into our first public hearing, the Holiday Convenience Store and Auto Care World Service Center. Mr. Getchell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. The applicant is requesting to construct a 5,200 square foot gas station and convenience store with a car wash and an 11,280 square foot auto repair facility at the property located on the northwest corner of the intersection of Pioneer Trail and Hennepin Town Road. I do understand that the developer is here to provide a presentation of their project. Staff and the developer will be here to answer any questions that the council has. You also have a public hearing that you would hold prior to any action that you would take. And the last mention that I would make is the Planning Commission did review this project, and they voted 8-0 to recommend denial of this project at their June 14th meeting before this came to you.
Great. Okay, is the proponent ready to present? If you give your name and address and position, I believe you're legally
Mr. Mayor.
represent. Okay, go ahead.
Members of the City Council and staff, my name is Peter Coyle. I'm a lawyer with Larkin Hoffman, 8300 Norman Center Drive. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant. Before I begin, there will be a couple of other presenters who are going to actually precede my comments, Mr. Mayor, with your permission. We'll have the property owner offer a couple of comments regarding his ownership history. And then we're asking that the... are you hearing me okay? Okay, sorry. Then I'm going to ask that the project consultant and engineer review the site plan and any changes to the site plan that occurred following the Planning Commission meeting. And we'll move through those as quickly as we can, and then I'll have comments on the PUD amendment itself. Before I turn to the owner, Mr. Cucciarella, I just want to acknowledge, as I always do in these meetings, the professionalism and the courtesy of your staff. Julie and her staff are always terrific. They're responsive. We don't always agree in every instance on every topic. Though I'm grateful to say that the staff is supportive of this application, and we appreciate that. And it's a disappointment, frankly, and a surprise that the Planning Commission was not. But we'll get into the substance of that in a couple of minutes. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd ask Mr. Cucciarella to step forward and just offer a couple of comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I'm going to be brief. My name is Mario Cucciarella. I'm the owner of Maplewood Development Company. We're a real estate development company based here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm going to speak quickly because, believe it or not, I got another city council meeting that I got to race to, so we're going to find out if my laptop is going to get me to a virtual version of that. The background of Maplewood Development: next year is our 40th year. I'll just tell you that Maplewood Development has put over 10,000 commercial and residential lots on the ground. We've got another 5,000 right now, with 3 of the largest master plan communities in the metro coming up, including Umore Park and Rosemont and the Imation Center in Oakdale. And I only say that because we are not novices in this business, and I believe that we did a lot of good due diligence here. In that vein, we purchased out of bankruptcy the property that's under question here, and you may recall that was included with that was the senior housing development that's on the south side of Pioneer, which went through a couple of years ago. The property was purchased out of tax forfeiture as well. There was a lot of back taxes owed on this. And frankly, we consulted with city staff, of course, on the permitted uses under the PUD, the zoning that was provided for this site. And frankly, gas convenience was at the top of the list in terms of the approved uses. And this was and is part of the plan for this PUD from the beginning. Our taxes on this property, since it's been suggested that perhaps there be some sort of different use, purchased out of tax forfeiture was almost $750,000. We've paid what is commensurate, frankly, with almost developed commercial retail property in Hennepin County. So our view of this has got to remain as a commercial retail use, simply because the expenses associated with the site are certainly commensurate with that. Back to the history of the applications that were submitted for this site. Prior to my ownership, Holiday had presented an application. I know they didn't get very far with that. Since my ownership, Super America certainly came in, not with a formal application, but certainly went far down the road with your staff. More recently, Hy-Vee came in with a grocery and gas convenience use, and certainly now we have a current use with Holiday back in with the AutoZone use. I have to say that these applicants are also not novices in this business. The rigorous review that's required as part of the process that they evaluate to do gas convenience in any location is not an easy or flippant process. They go through this very, very difficult process and make sure that their particular use is really going to work within the context of commercial retail. So quickly, from my perspective, why do we have zoning? Is it because the land in any particular area, and of course this is what I do every day, but the land and this parcel in particular was not invented or unique to the current residents that surround it. There was always somebody there before they were there, before I come there. There was a farmer who probably wasn't very enamored with 169 going through this area, but it happened, and that's progress. And the reason we have zoning is because unlike other areas of the country that I do business in, we don't have three houses sitting next to a double tree. That's not the way it works here in Minnesota. We set the tone for what's going to happen at a site, and we adhere to it. And from my perspective, and I think I've dealt with nearly every city in Minneapolis and St. Paul certainly, but the charge of a planning commission and city council is to be forward-thinking enough to recognize that the value of thoughtful planning is to adhere to the type of framework that was established for this site and other sites throughout this city and other cities. That process was deliberate, and it wasn't taken lightly at the time, and it was a process for the entirety of the project, which included all the townhomes, the Walgreens, the strip center, and everything that went along with this site. I relied on that, and I believe that your professional planning staff in their recommendation for approval also looks back to those underlying PUD approvals and says, yes, this is acceptable, and frankly, it's commensurate with what was planned for this site. I think in this application, you have a great user, a responsible user, certainly a responsible franchisee, certainly a deep-pocketed owner in Holiday and AutoZone, and a well-known and respected builder that plans to take it through the process They have a long history of doing things correctly. I would urge you to approve this application in spite of what the Planning Commission did. And I'll leave you with one last anecdote. I think what's really telling throughout all of the neighborhood meetings that I've been part to and all of the applications that have come through here, in spite of the opposition of the neighborhood, is that I never heard anybody say that they were surprised by this. This was the use that was anticipated. There was never any shock about that. And I think it's telling that everything that we seem to put in front of them is met with some disdain, but I think that it shows, that the project was and is meant to be commensurate with the use that's being put in front of you tonight. Those are my comments. I don't know if you have any questions of me, but the applicant's here. So.
No. Council? Thank you, Mr. Cottrell.
Hi, my name is Dan Lavender. I'm the engineer of record for the project with Stan Tech. Our office is in Golden Valley, 7500 Olson Memorial Highway. So I wanted to talk to you. I believe we have some slides that we sent also. I don't know how to. There we go. Does this work with these? Yeah. Okay. So what I would like to talk about today is really what changes we've made to our plans since the Planning Commission meeting to try to incorporate some of the comments that we got from the Planning Commission as well as the neighbors. And as well as talk about the traffic as well. So this is the site that we've designed. You've got the, I don't know if there's a pointer, Holiday Station, I think everyone's pretty familiar, and Auto Care World site. Previous design had one entrance on Hennepin Town Road. Since then, we've made some changes that allow for access to Breezy Way to reduce the traffic at the intersection with Pioneer Trail. We've removed 2 parking stalls. On the top of the screen right here, you can see 2 stalls that were removed to eliminate the need for a landscape island variance. So we've enlarged the landscape island that was there. So we've added 3 electric vehicle charging stations. 1 at the Auto Care World site, 2 at the convenience store gas station. We revised the driveway at Breezy Way. This was something that the city engineer asked us to take a look at. Some of the concerns from the city were that patrons were going to be driving through the neighborhood to get to the site with queuing, possibly blocking our entrance, that they would take a shortcut through the site. And so we revised our driveway to be right out, left in only. We're going to have signage and striping that would denote that it's no left turn out, no right turn in. We've also revised the radii of the driveway, so it kind of deters cars from doing that. The hope here is that cars aren't going to be driving through the neighborhood. Our project has a easement over Breezy Way to our site, and the intent is we would use it and only it. So that's an additional change that we've made since planning. The other item that I know a lot of the neighbors are concerned about, the city as well, is the traffic. We presented a traffic report to the Planning Commission and the city. I want to kind of summarize a little bit. Essentially, there's a lot of words on the site, so I'll try to make it shorter. Essentially, in the morning, there's not really a traffic issue, existing condition or proposed. In the evening, there's an existing traffic issue. The queue backs up past the driveway to our site in the existing condition. That's, anything that you would add to this site would make that worse. Whether you developed it with one house or a coffee shop or anything like that, it would make that worse. So, we can't say that ours isn't going to increase traffic. It is. But our intent is that the solutions below will help treat that and improve the conditions. So the main solution that we're suggesting is a flashing yellow light at Hennepin Town and Pioneer Trail intersection. This light would be for southbound traffic, flashing left turns, so cars can stop. Cars don't stop, sorry, and can queue to the left. There's not a lot of traffic coming across the street from the south of that intersection, and we're hoping that this can eliminate the queuing back past the entrance to our site. The Breezy Way access that we proposed, we believe will also benefit our site with the decreased traffic using the main entrance to the convenience store. We also have agreed with the city engineer to incorporate a 3/4 access at the site driveway once traffic levels reach 2023 expected levels. So essentially our current plan does not show that. The developers agreed to pay for that site when we reach the levels that we anticipate for 2023. That 3/4 access, if you're not familiar, essentially blocks the left turn in, left turn out. So we're hoping that kind of will alleviate some of the concerns that some of the residents in the city may have with the traffic existing and proposed in front of our site. Developers also proposing to fully fund that. So last slide I've got for you. One thing that we wanted to kind of go through is many residents have mentioned that they'd prefer a coffee shop or fast food restaurant to our site. And what we've done is gone and shown traffic totals for our site. Weekday daily, 3,489 vehicles versus the traffic totals for if you were to put a fast food without a drive-through. Drive-through is not allowed for this site, and a convenience market. You'd actually have worse traffic than with our proposed site. We believe, looking at various uses for the site, that this is the best site, the best development for this location. I don't know if there's any other questions. Be happy to answer them. That's really it, I believe.
Council, any questions of engineering?
Excuse me, I have one question. Is the 3/4 access, is that on Breezy Way or on Hennepin Town Road?
Hennepin Town Road.
Okay.
That's what you asked.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'm Peter Coyle on behalf of the applicant. I do have the the project applicant, Mike Schaffner, here this evening, and Mike is an experienced owner-operator of these kinds of uses, auto-related uses. I'm sure he'd be happy to answer questions if you have any about the proposed operation of the site. You've already heard from Mario Cucciarella, the landowner. We appreciate your accommodating his schedule. What I want to do, Mr. Mayor and Council, then, is focus on the PUD process itself, the application and the standards that are applicable to the city as well as to us. As your staff report very carefully notes, this site has been long guided for this neighborhood commercial use. Moreover, it's also been zoned for this neighborhood commercial use. This is not a recent invention on the part of the property owner or the applicant to seek this land use designation. These uses are permitted. The policy discussion for the city, frankly, has already been made. The landowner is entitled to rely on those policy determinations by the city as reflected in your comprehensive plan and in your zoning ordinance. Moreover, there's an existing PUD structure that was adopted quite a number of years ago that clearly identified this site for commercial use, and as most recently as the 2007 and more recent time frame, a strip retail use was approved for the site. And as Mr. Cucciarella had noted, there have been multiple conversations with potential developers for convenience gas uses because the Pioneer access was not something that they could accommodate for their plans. They chose not to go forward. Mr. Schaffner, in his own deliberations of this project, has concluded that he's willing to make that sacrifice and that compromise because he believes this is a viable corner for his proposed Auto Care World and Holiday Station. But it starts with the fact that the city's land use and zoning policies approve this use. So I want to be clear that that decision's been made. So beyond that then, we talk about what the current Bluff County PUD has for policies. And as your staff has noted, your PUD ordinance provides for these convenience uses. The city's PUD ordinance process allows for the flexibility that this application is seeking by the way of 3 or 4 waivers that are built into the request. We took several of those waiver items off the table by modifications to the plan that were made following the Planning Commission meeting, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. But one of the most important waivers that we will be presenting has to do with the lot configuration. The city has already approved undersized lots for this property based on the prior PUD approvals and platting. So while we are modifying those as part of this request, we are not inventing new ones. Secondly, there's a lot dimension waiver that was approved. And while we are modifying it, we are not inventing this concept. It's already been approved, at least conceptually, within the framework of the PUD that's before you. The existing PUD and development agreement also specifies the process to be followed by this applicant in bringing the application forward, and that's what this application tonight is all about. It's the PUD amendment, if you will, along with the zoning designation and the preliminary plat that would allow for the properties to be divided, coupled with the waivers that are built into it. There's a couple of standards that are built into your code that govern this application, which I want to just quickly run through. The first and most important, as I've indicated, is that the plans do not conflict with your 2040 comprehensive plan. And as I've stated, they do not. They are fully compliant and have been for quite some time, frankly, previous to this application. The city had plenty of notice and opportunity to amend its comprehensive plan and its zoning, frankly, but it has not done so. And as Mr. Cucciarella has indicated, as the landowner and potentially Mr. Schaffner as the developer and builder, they're entitled to rely on the investment that's been made for this property. Secondly, in your code, the standard is that the plan must provide a desirable and unified space within the boundaries of the property. This plan is a PUD amendment. It provides for the integration of 2 auto-related uses that will share access and parking, which is something that your code advocates for. And thirdly, for those waivers that are present in the application, the standard, and I'm quoting almost verbatim, but if I'm not, somebody on the city staff will correct me, I'm sure, that the waivers are justified by the site and building plan. We think that the plan that's before you is very reasonable. There's no bells and whistles about it. It's very simple in its concept, and it takes full advantage of the site without overburdening the site in the way that other more traditional retail type uses would be allowed to do, as Mr. Lavender highlighted by his traffic review. And then the final standard is that the PUD construction, marketing, and operation can be accomplished as a cohesive unit. This will be a single owner project, albeit with 2 businesses, but they will be operated in tandem in the sense that there'll be common operation and management control. So those are the standards that we're bound by, and respectfully so is the city. So the legal questions that relate to whether this gets to be an auto type use, whether it's the holiday use or the auto service facility, those questions have already been answered, as I said at the outset. So that really leaves us with the waiver questions that are part of this application. And the first of those waivers is for minimum lot size. The existing PUD already allows for substandard, albeit somewhat smaller lots. This application will bring that substandard lot closer into compliance, although not into full compliance. but it will be more compliant than what's already there. Secondly, minimum lot width is a waiver that we're requesting. And as with the lot size, the waiver we are seeking will bring this property closer to compliance than the existing configuration of the property. So neither of those, as they bring the property closer to compliance with your code, ought to be objectionable to the City Council this evening, in my opinion. The third waiver relates to the internal parking setback. It's wholly internal to the site. It allows for the site to function more cohesively and efficiently, which is one of the standards in your PUD ordinance. And so we think on that basis that that waiver ought to be acceptable to you. That brings me to the last broad category, which relates to the fuel pump and the holiday station design. The placement of the canopy itself, in our opinion, actually enhances the well-being of the residents. And I say that respectfully because I know there's one or two here that have a different point of view. But in our mind, the placement of the canopy away from the residential neighborhood to the west is a plus, not a detriment. And I respect that there's a difference of opinion about that. But we think that that's a positive site plan feature to the site that we think merits your support. In addition, with respect to canopy design, the flat roof design of the canopy allows for the efficiency of the operation of the site so that Holiday, as with most convenience store operators, can provide autofill functions for their car wash stations that are at each pump island. That's an efficiency for them, and we think that's frankly a common sense and practical design that's typical for most auto service uses. And then with respect to the canopy connection, this is important. As you are all very sensitive to, federal law and state law obligates all property owners who are building facilities for public access to provide ADA compliant parking. By creating a separated canopy from the building itself, it ensures that Holiday can provide safe and secure access, safe, reliable access to their property, their building, for those who are in need of ADA parking. So that's an element of this plan as well. Finally, I would note that staff made an editorial comment, which we appreciated, frankly, opining that based on the other buildings that are in the area of this site, that the flat roof structure will be more compatible with what's around it. Mr. Mayor and Council, in our opinion, these waiver requests are reasonable because they allow for a cohesive and uniform operation of the site with little to no adverse effect on the public. The city routinely approves these waivers as part of PUD applications, as it should, but we acknowledge that's your choice to make. But when you make that choice, you have to follow your own policies and standards, as I outlined at the front end of this presentation, starting with the fact that these uses are permitted under your code. So, Mr. Mayor, we request approval of the PUD amendment consistent with city standards and the existing PUD. These uses are permitted, not discretionary. The neighborhood objections, of which there are many, and I'll acknowledge that there are understandable. This will be a change for them. But it's a change that was forecast for many, 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 many years in your code and in previous actions of property owners who've tried to work with this site. And I would say respectfully, and since your counsel is here, she'll correct me if I overstate this point, while the neighborhood input is important for you to hear, this is a democratic process, the fact that there are loud voices or many loud voices is not determinative in your decision. This is not a popularity contest. It's a question of whether or not we're following your legal standards as set out in your code, and I believe that we are. And finally, I would just say the application follows with a consistent pattern what's been allowed by the city on properties of this type that are guided for this type of use. This is a site that's isolated from the residential neighborhood. The access by Breezy Way is permitted as of right. There's an easement that guarantees this landowner the ability to access that site, that corridor rather. And we've done our best to design this site to minimize the potential for intrusion into the neighborhoods and to ensure that the traffic that will come to this site, perhaps even someday those from the neighborhood itself, but we've done our best to design this site to make sure that it functions safely and effectively for the city and of course for the landowner itself. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take questions if you have any for me at this time. Otherwise, if you want to call me back up after the public has had its opportunity to speak, we'll do our best to answer your questions at that time. Thank you very much, sir.
Council, any questions at this point?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Creel.
Thank you very much.
So I believe that we're ready to move into the public comment portion. Yep. All right. Let me add a couple thoughts. And first, many of you are aware that we've sat through a few controversial meetings over the last 3 to 4 months that have been stressful. So I want to thank all of you so far. Thank you, truly, for being respectful and listening to the proponents' discussion and presentation. We are fellow residents like you. We get elected to sit here to do the best that we can do for all the people of Eden Prairie, so we appreciate your respect as well. So thank you. I really mean that. You've been great. So continuing on now, if I knew or thought that every one of you was going to speak, I will probably time it. I did speak to a couple of the leaders that have been more involved or contacting me and encouraged them to have just a couple people speak and represent the group. That doesn't mean you're not allowed to speak. You certainly can. Again, if it goes on and on, we may need to limit times just because the best decisions are not made at 2 o'clock in the morning by anybody. And I'm not sure how long you'd like to wait. So with that being said, and I think I see Jay itching there, I'm going to allow someone to come up first. I'm betting who that might be. But again, everyone is welcome to, but Jay, I know that you had open meeting law, you can only have 1 or 2 of us at a time, but I know I was out to visit with the neighborhood, I don't know what now, months ago, and met Jay. And just to let people know too, I've been really fortunate to have very respectful conversations with Mr. Schaffner as well, and talked on the phone, and then we also had a meeting with him. It's been actually a very positive, democratic, I guess, process that I've been involved in, at least so far, with all of you, and then with the proponent and the landowner and others. So with that, Mr. Stankiewicz.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Last time I breathed a little bit too much in the microphone, so I'm going to look to the side. Mayor Case, council members, thank you for the opportunity to make these comments. I know your job isn't easy, and I'll tell you, the first thing I've learned about this is exactly how hard it is. For Beth, for Julie, for your city staff, for your commissioners. In fact, I might have submitted some details to our mayor to maybe be considered in the future for the commission. I'd like to be involved. My neighbor Beth Butel from Lee Drive was going to speak tonight. I'm going to share most of her thoughts in my remarks. After that, we have Jerry Maher and Bruce Barton, who are from the Bluff Country Village Townhome Community, and they'll have the most immediate and lasting impact of this, as well. Woodland Ponds is who I support. Even though the developers and partners decided to lead with a lawyer tonight who effectively collapsed more than a few waivers into 3 or 4, my goal tonight is not to be cynical. And the reality is I've been dealing with this proposal for more than 2 years. I emailed Jack Ryan 2 years ago, and we realized we were both from the same part of Illinois when we grew up. I don't want to be cynical. Instead, I want to put my faith in you, in your integrity, why you were elected, your common sense, and that you're going to make the right decision for us tonight. The truth of the matter is, and tonight the only truth that matters after the commission vote, is these minor changes don't even remotely address the major concerns voiced by the Planning Commission, who again voted unanimously 8-0 to reject. I sent you an email, so I'm assuming you watched the replay. I won't be so much fire and brimstone, and partly because my 6-year-old isn't here to watch me. But I want to reiterate a few facts. 1, This development would amplify existing traffic issues at an intersection already graded F. I only learned that at the last Planning Commission meeting. It's going to create far troubling new ones, and Jerry and Bruce are going to expand on that. And trust me, although their engineer said one single-family home would create the same traffic impact, I have a real question about where their math is going. Number 2, this will encroach on setbacks and put a service center within a stone's throw of many residential homes with all the light, air, and sound pollution that would come with an operation this overwhelming in its size. And the one word you didn't hear before my talk, intensity. And you know who said that word first? Your Planning Commission. 3, this will result, and I know this isn't important, it didn't come up in their discussion, but I'm going to say it anyway. It will result in the loss of historic trees and wildlife and vegetation on the site, where visual privacy is important and sound surrounding is important. I know they don't have a waiver or need one at this point, but I wanted to make that comment. This will bring in non-resident commuters into a very quiet, older neighborhood, 24 hours of the day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. 5, this will shoehorn an overly intense operation onto acreage that can't safely support it. To my knowledge, and again, I'm not an expert here, but we do our research, this would be one of the largest, if not the largest, operation of its type in Eden Prairie, much less nested in a highly dense residential community that includes everybody in the room tonight. It includes a daycare, and it includes the new senior living facility. I'm sorry, I'm reading notes from Peter, the attorneys, and I'm going to just skip that one. Number 6, and let's just get to the point because translation, interpretation matters, right? All of this, and things I haven't even mentioned, the pumps out front, all the other waivers, this all runs counter to the 2 main pillars of the neighborhood commercial zoning district. And let's go right to those pillars, right? 1 is to serve the again, this is the writing of the city, and I know that, was a point of Peter's, to serve the residents of the immediate neighborhood and minimize the adverse effect of adjoining residential uses, which is our homes. Trust me when I say, as perhaps, and no offense to all of my friends and neighbors, I might be the youngest person here today, but I will tell you, we don't buy gas or snacks at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. We have Walgreens for convenience during normal operations and plus a pharmacy. We literally have 2 gas stations within a 2-minute drive, and we know Holiday is trying to split them for volume. We know that. We also have 4 service centers, this type of service center, within a 5-minute drive. I know that because we've driven it. My family drove it last weekend. We, the immediate neighborhood community this development needs to serve, don't need or want this development. And let's be honest, it's on 169. It was never meant to serve us. And when we talk about tax payments, which Mario did, and I'll come back to Mario, we've all made personal and financial investments in Eden Prairie. We've invested tens of millions in our homes. We've paid our taxes. We've taught and learned in the schools. My wife has. My daughter has. We've owned and operated business. I started an LLC here too that truly enhanced our community. We made those investments with a good faith expectation that we were going to continue to be able. We moved from Chicago 7 years ago. We came specifically to Eden Prairie with the thought of we could live and raise my family, our families, in a clean, safe, and healthy environment. Trust me, in Mayor Case, we've spoken about this. You guys saw it in my email, and I know I can be a little bit bombastic, and I would say the patience Julie and Beth and the rest of the planning staff have shown me is, as I've learned along the way, has been phenomenal. We welcome a commercial business into this site. I will be the first to jump on board. You can hold me to that. But this isn't the right business. This is not the right product or service. It's not the right intensity. And candidly, it's not the right partners who have shown, in their words tonight, and the first thing the commission said in June, noted their lack of communication with us. And for me, it's been outright contempt. And I made a couple of notes here that I may or may not get into, but we talk about, change, right? And when we spoke in June and we heard from Mario, he talked about change as a constant, and we wouldn't deal with it. He wants it both ways. Change is inevitable, but he doesn't account for the development of all the residential property since they purchased this distressed asset many years ago. In fact, in June, Mario had said something I just have to say again, and then we'll move on to the other neighbors. But Mario commented that it's disgraceful this site isn't developed. But what I find personally disgraceful is the lack of empathy and the true lack of willingness to work in the community. To the best of my knowledge, they haven't even contacted the master HOE. How is that earnest? How is that genuine in wanting to truly enhance our community? Again, they're the experts, not us, but talking down to a room of residents will never gain our support. To Mayor Case, thank you for everything you've done as far as communicating with us, meeting with us, to the council members, to the city staff, to the city manager. I know you're going to make the right decision tonight. And like the commission already did, vote unanimously to reject this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jay. Next. If you'd give your name and address.
Yes, I'm Jerry Maher, 9778 Belmont Lane. I'm also the president of the Bluff Country Village Master Association and the Bluff Country Village Townhome Association. Last week I sent you probably the longest email I've ever written about the impact of this development on Bluff Country Village. So I'm not going to go over that again tonight, but I would like to add a few comments just to add context to our situation and to comment on some of Mr. Schaffner's comments that he published late Thursday afternoon. Bluff Country Village consists of 3 homeowners associations, a total of 94 members, kind of small by HOA standards. The development was built in 2000, 2001. It's accessed only from Hennepin Town Road by a U-shaped drive formed by Belmont Lane and Breezy Way. Now, contrary to Mr. Schaffner's assertions of last week, we are not some sort of third world neighborhood. We're not deprived of snacks or gasoline. No one I know of suffers from grab and go deficiency. No one prowls the neighborhood looking for snacks at 2 a.m. Our cars are in pretty good repair, and includes our resident Model A. It was out just the other day. Thus, his statement published last week that we have limited accessible resources is pure balderdash. I mean, come on, it didn't happen. Secondly, the Costco's plus size of this development simply doesn't fit the site, code or no code. The trees on the west side will be cleared, leaving our condominiums with a clear view of the back of a repair shop and a car wash. Now, my 9-year-old daughter or granddaughter is a self-proclaimed base softball pitcher. She'll be able to stand on the sidewalk on Bridge Hill Terrace and bounce a softball off the back of that repair shop. It's that close. The car wash is about the distance between bases on a baseball field from Ms. Shahan's front door. It's that close. I mean, no Eden Prairie gas station has ever been built that close to residential properties. There might be a couple where the residential properties are there now, but the gas station was there first. Now, as you're aware, the traffic problem on Hennepin Town Road in the evening rush hour is extremely heavy. Bluff Country Village residents often wait about 30 minutes in line to get home to turn on Belmont Lane or Breezy Way. Those trying to leave on Belmont or Breezy during the rush hour end up waiting 15 minutes or more right now to get in there when the traffic is backed up, which is what we're talking about. This proposal will dump 252 more cars onto Hennepin Town Road. And I understand there are other things you could build that might be more, like what about an airport? I mean, the cynical logic justifying this seems to go something like, it's a level F now, it'll be a level F when we finish, so what's your problem? It just doesn't make sense to me. The traffic mitigation measures that are proposed are also balderdash. The Breezy Way entrance is simply a way to reduce backups in the mall and turn the private road into an auxiliary parking lot. That's all it accomplishes, because the traffic still all has to go through the Hennepin Town Road funnel. There's nowhere else for it to go. Therefore, Bluff Country Village residents wait in even longer lines to get to Hennepin Town Road than they have to now. The site's just too small. Mr. Schaffner's description of the solution to keep the vehicles off Belmont Lane, it's one of our private roads that's not subject to an easement agreement, well, you know, more balderdash. Last Thursday, he described it as a right-in, right-out exit on Breezy Way. And that didn't make any sense to me. But the description tonight is it's a left-in, right-out thing. I'm still not sure what that means, but over the weekend it changed. He's also going to provide us with signage. And I found out tonight, stripes too, big deal. Signage on a private property isn't enforceable as far as I know. And it's still going to be possible for the drivers coming in and out of that Breezy Way driveway to go through Belmont Lane. Just more safety problems, more costs for Bluff Country Village. Any access on Breezy Way opens Belmont Lane to public traffic and destroys the very nature of a private road. It's no longer a private road when you're encouraging public traffic to go on it. And that brings me to this three-quarter intersection, which they're so generously offering to pay for. This simply makes Breezy Way and Belmont Lane even worse. The Walgreens traffic will not be allowed to turn left and go back to Pioneer Trail where they came from. They're going to have to turn north. So how do they get back to Pioneer Trail? They turn on Breezy Way or Belmont Lane and go around and get back on going southbound. So once again, you've routed public traffic on our private roads. The alternative, if that's what's intended, is a roundabout 2.5 mile drive north on Hennepin Town Road, west on Anderson Lake Parkway, and south on Franlow to get back to Pioneer Trail. So they exchange a 300-foot trip today for a 2.5 mile detour for all the Walgreens customers who be unfortunate enough to get trapped in there. The conversion of Breezy Way to a commercial residential street and the requirement that Bluff Country Village enter into a joint access and maintenance agreement would be a large cost for the association. We've paid for the maintenance of Breezy Way 100% over the last 20 years. We have not had any of the commercial properties contribute anything to the maintenance of Breezy Way. But obviously our volunteer board would need legal counsel to go against these commercial entities. There's no foolproof way to estimate the cost of a commercial residential road because this might be the first of its kind. The easement says Bluff Country Village is obligated to pay 50% of the costs of maintaining Breezy Way. It's not a one-and-done deal. We are going to be permanently joined at the hips with these unprincipled rogues to haggle over costs and manage a problem that can only get worse and shouldn't be allowed to happen in the first place. So tonight you have your choice of choosing a business partner for us for the next several decades. Certainly not ones we would have chosen. The association is totally focused on the neighborhood. That's what we're about. These guys really could care less. They've yet to contact us for any kind of ideas what our members could live with. They've staged a disinformation campaign to mislead us under the guise of site information visits. Their target is obviously much larger than our neighborhood. I mean, why else would you build a Costco-sized gas station there? So I ask you, please, let common sense prevail. Reject this proposal as inappropriate for Bluff Country Village and the surrounding neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Is there a third speaker?
Yes.
Or how many speakers are there? I thought there's 3 total. Yeah, 3 total. Perfect. Okay. Thank you. And I'm not going to cut off others. It's just that if I had known the 3 would be, it's all good, but this long, we might have then shortened. But so others can speak, but we just may have to time you if that's okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Bruce Barron. I live at 9781 Belmont Lane. I just want to talk about 2 things here. I'll be short and sweet. I spent my whole career building roads for the city of Minneapolis, supervisor of public works. Now, just talking about the quality of the road on Belmont Lane, that's a residential road, only got 3 inches of asphalt and class 5 underneath. It cannot withstand an increase in heavy traffic, and there will be an increase in traffic, we all know. You think a lot of people are going to pay attention, oh, no left turn on Breezy? You got another thing coming. There's a backup there, they'll spin around right through Belmont Lane. And the road's not designed for heavy traffic, and it's a private road. The association owns that road. We are going to be stuck with the repair on that road and repaving. The City of Eden Prairie isn't going to repave that road for us. It's a private road. That's all I have to say about that. Now, item 2. My job in the winter, snow emergencies, I was the supervisor for alley snow removal, southwest section of Minneapolis. Everything south of Lake Street, everything west of Interstate 35. So I worked 24-hour shifts on that alley plowing, and I was up all night. Let me tell you about the kind of people that hang out from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. at 24-hour convenience stores. They're not on the way home from the library or church. Let me tell you that. These are some bad actors. And the convenience stores, 24-hour convenience stores, that is their gathering spot or their rendezvous spots. I've seen it over 20 years. And believe me, our nice little townhome community is going to be a prime target. They go, oh, look at those little quiet townhouses with all those little private cul-de-sacs. We'll be primed for thefts, car stealing out of our cars, breaking our car windows, even breaking into the garages. So that's one thing that hasn't been addressed is the increase in the crime. Right now we have very, very little, and it's going to be very, very big increase in car break-ins in our neighborhood. I've seen it all in these 24-hour places. I spent a lot of time drinking coffee at 3 a.m. in the morning on holiday stations. Well, I'm sure a lot of you haven't. And it's not the nicest place in the world for a gathering spot. Like I say, they're not coming home from church or the library. Well, that's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for your public service as well. All right, anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council?
I'll be quick. Alicia Reeves, 9673 Belmont Lane. I live at Bluff Country Village. I'm also on the master board and president of the condo board. I just want to point out that at the intersection of Breezy Way and Hennepin Town Road. And at the intersection of Belmont Lane and Hennepin Town Road, there are bus stops. And I'm very concerned about the traffic. So there are 2 bus stops right there. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the council? All right, council, why don't we close the public hearing portion and then decide where to go from there?
Move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Again, I do want to thank everyone for your composure tonight and for the comments and the fact that they were clumped together and that you had representatives. That's really helpful to us. Many of you know that we had a public hearing back on May 4th where there were 87 people to speak that ended at 1:30. Yeah. So thank you for what you have done tonight. All right, council. Before I'd like to make a statement. I'd like to pull a chair's prerogative and start. I usually ask one of you to go first, and then I try to go last, and I'll continue that into the future. But tonight, I'd like to kind of level set a few things and go first. But before I do that, I wanted to ask you, just in the way of questions of anybody. You're allowed to ask staff. You can ask our attorney if you have questions. If you had a specific question regarding the development proposal itself, we could call up a specific, like the engineer or something. But otherwise, I would say let's try to aim our questions at staff. But do you have anything, or are you prepared? I know that we've studied this. We watched, I think all of us watched the Planning Commission. We've many of us have visited the neighborhood. We've read about everything you all have sent us. We have been in contact with the proponent. We've read everything that came to us from the proponent. So I feel like we're pretty knowledgeable, but I want to give you an opportunity if you had a question. Councilmember Nelson.
I've got a question, a couple of questions, in fact, of staff, I believe, that I think need to be brought up at this meeting tonight, even though they are brought up in planning and other such things. The proponent didn't bring it up. Exactly how many pumps are we talking about at this gas station? If staff could answer, or whoever.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the proposal includes 16 gas pumps.
16 gas pumps. How many are at a typical gas station that you find around in neighborhoods in Eden Prairie?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, in Eden Prairie, you'll find a range of gas pumps, anywhere from 6 pumps at a convenience store gas station to up to 14 existing.
Okay. Are any of these in neighborhood areas, or are most of them in major center areas?
Mayor, members of the council, 3 of the existing 12 gas stations in Eden Prairie are in neighborhood commercial zoning districts.
Yeah.
With 6, 8, and 12 pumps.
6, 8, and 12. So they're much smaller then. Am I correct that this gas station be open 24 hours a day? Or will they be shutting at 10 o'clock like many gas stations do? Or if you don't know, can the proponent answer that?
Our intention was 24 hours.
24 hours a day?
Yeah, that was our initial intention. But Mike Schaffner, the proponent, the initial plan was to be 24 hours, but there had been some talk about potentially changing those hours if that was something that was needed, but the initial plan was 24 hours, yes.
Thank you.
Aside from a gas station?
Go ahead. You can sit down for now and we'll call you back up.
Aside from a gas station, there is a car wash, and will that be also open 24 hours a day?
Mayor, members of the council, it's my understanding, yes, in their application materials, it was a 24-hour operation.
And they also have some repair bays. How many repair bays do they have?
10 repair bays.
10 repair bays. 24 hours a day?
No, those are proposed with hours of operation, I believe, from 7 a.m. to 5, and on Saturdays from something reduced from that. I apologize, I don't remember the end time on weekends.
So we have the equivalent of some of the largest area number of pumps. We have the garage bays, and we have the car wash. And this is, most of it's 24 hours a day. So also, I believe that in all of our areas of planning for neighborhood commercial and community commercial, and I forget the last one, like major enter commercial, that they allow gas stations, but they generally have the idea of looking at the neighborhood, looking at the larger community, and looking at beyond the community, like coming into the major center area. This sounds like it would be acceptable in the community or the larger center area, but I do question neighborhood commercial, given its size, given its 24 hours a day, and such. That does bother me when it's this close to the neighborhoods. And the fact that in a different kind of zoning, the community, or is it major center, or am I misquoting it?
Commercial regional services.
Thank you, community regional services. This might be quite appropriate, but I'm not so sure that a neighborhood commercial, especially when their traffic is going to have to go on a private street, even with the fact that there was original paperwork for it. I have questions about the suitability of it, the size of it, and if they're closing at 6 p.m. each day, it's a little different than open 24 hours a day.
Well, so much for my starting out.
Well, no, I thought these were things that were not brought up. They were.
You can raise the
planning.
questions, but you. No, I'm just kidding. It's all good.
But I did think that anybody watching this should understand
Absolutely.
the details of this.
No, I'm thrilled.
I wish that the original people had brought them up, but that wasn't tonight.
Absolutely, you're perfectly in line. You just stole some of my thunder, but I'm going to take it back. So, and then I would like to open back up to all the council members, and you can have your say again.
No, I'll be quiet.
And no, please, I'm going to make you talk next. No, I had written out a statement, and I do want to make sure that I say it correctly. I'm going to read through it, but I wanted to level set a few things prior to. It's fine that you did what you did prior to us getting into the thick of it here. So first, no one in this room should ever want government at any level to make decisions that are based on the largest crowd, the noisiest protesters, or the most emails and phone calls. That type of decision making would end in chaotic development with the not in my backyard voices, resulting in a disorganized and inadequate commercial and tax-based resources for our residents across the city. There's a reason we have representative government here in America, and at its core is because we need objectivity within these emotional processes. We need reasoned and studied deliberations, and we need decisions to be made in light of what is best for the entire city of Eden Prairie. But that doesn't mean representative government doesn't or should not take into account the perspectives of neighbors of projects, of vocal activists who care deeply about issues and priorities, who believe they're working for the good of all, or of people who are simply very involved citizens. It just means that our job is to view the whole picture, to learn about all the ins and outs of a project, to give the development proponent a complete and total review, and then make the best decision for the good of the entire city, taking into account any negative impacts on the surrounding neighborhoods. Remember, we don't choose types of projects that fit within zoning ordinances. We don't choose the developer. We don't choose brands or companies. Owners have that American land-owning right to make those decisions. This corner property sits at a strategic intersection and location in southeast Eden Prairie. It's been zoned for neighborhood commercial before most of the neighbors living near it today, even lived in this city. Before I got on the council, and I've been on since '95. Anyone doing their due diligence prior to purchase could have easily found out that this property is already zoned, which is rare, by the way, in the city of Eden Prairie to have it zoned early. It's already zoned neighborhood commercial, and that neighborhood commercial in Eden Prairie legally includes the potential of a gas station. Any neighbor on the north side could have easily discovered that the owner of this land also owns half of Breezy Way, and I know you all did uncover that, or knew it already. And that the owner of this property has legally binding rights to utilize the road for entrance and exits of traffic from this site, and this is not going to change by anything that gets done tonight. However, evaluating the merits of this proposal before us this evening, Eden Prairie has not seen a new gas station built within our borders for decades. And to approve a gas station today that would be the largest, outside of Costco, the largest with the most pumps of any station currently in our town, seems, except for Costco, it seems excessive to me for so many reasons. First, neighborhood commercial notwithstanding, our council since the 90s has been so careful when approving disparate zoning districts that are contiguous to residential areas. We've been so careful not to overbuild. Something that Nancy Lukens, it was near and dear to her heart, and I sided with her, probably not as many times as I should have, but many, many times with her on this issue. A gas station that's open 24 hours with 16 pumps, a car wash, and a large and brightly lit canopy really is the definition of an overbuild in my mind. And to build this station at this location requires variances and waivers that I'm not inclined to approve tonight. Second, we currently have commercial property in Eden Prairie that has attracted a critical mass of auto repair type businesses. These locations, I believe in my research today, are currently tucked within or contiguous to regional commercially zoned areas, not residential properties. Placing a busy gas station and auto repair complex into a piece of property in such close proximity to so many homes would seem not to serve the best interests of the greater community. Finally, traffic. Former owners from 30 years ago set in motion legal protections for this site that are an encumbrance to us today, admittedly. I don't have an answer yet for how the already stressed traffic issues on Hennepin Town Road during primarily the evening rush hour, I don't have an answer how that can be addressed, even before adding whatever does eventually go into this corner site. And we know that whatever goes in some way will exacerbate traffic. So to the owner and future developer of whatever goes onto this site, I just hope you'll work with us. To the neighbors, particularly on the north and west sides of this site, something's going to go in that will complicate your lives during rush hour. We'll work with you, but just know that our options are currently limited in how we're going to resolve this issue. So therefore, tonight I can't vote to approve this project as proposed. Ongoing, I have serious issues with the gas station really ever going in on this corner, but we do have zoning issues to look at. By the way, this probably because of it would need to be grandfathered in on this site, but looking forward, it's often interesting when, and I'm not judging former councils or former staff, but many cities, when they divide their regional commercial, their neighborhood commercial, what was the other one? The community commercial. They end up, if they let gas stations, they limit sizes of pumps, or the mom and pop, 2-pump station that would go into neighborhood, or the 16 more into a regional. We haven't done that in our code. We might want to look at that for the future, but you can't undercut a piece of property in the moment. So I'd like to ask staff to work with the landowner to creatively problem solve other possibilities that can fully be actualizing the value of this land and be the right mix of a less intense use, and then work to resolve the traffic issue to the best of our ability. Now I'd like to hear from each of you. I just want to say we're very picky, all of us, about open meeting law. Only 2 of us can ever meet and discuss an issue. I usually pick my council member, and I do it differently on all the issues. I think Mr. Freiberg and I on this one had connected, but I've not talked to the other 3. So I don't know if we want to go down the line, if one of you wants to speak next, but it'd be great to hear from all of you if you wish. Mr. Freiberg.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Got a question. I'm looking at these repair stalls, and I see one that's a whole lot taller than the other 9, which tells me you're looking at trucks. What kind of trucks? Semis? It looks quite a bit taller.
No, just like trucks that have ladders on tops or racks.
Okay,
it's a 12-foot door versus a 10-foot door.
Okay, so we're going to say maybe like a panel truck that might have, a work truck But
Yeah.
we're not talking a semi here.
No, nothing heavy duty, just light duty stuff, up to like a 1-ton truck. That's the biggest
Okay.
we do.
Now, I've walked the property, about 3 times in the last 4 days. And when I walk a property, I walk a property. And take it serious what I'm saying. This proposal in many ways looks like you're trying to shove as much building as you can into what's there. And what I'm talking about is that bay. I'm looking at 216 feet that's going to be buttoned up against the housing behind it. How tall is that? Do you remember roughly? I won't hold you to it. Just give me an idea.
I think 25-ish in that range.
Okay, it's pretty close to a 3-story building. Okay, and there's some elevation to where those houses are, but there's not a lot.
Yep.
This easement, let's just talk about this easement a second. I understand you got an easement, along that road, the private road. And the gentleman that was up here is right. Eden Prairie would not fix that road if the traffic starts deteriorating it. You have to look at, there's a difference between an easement and creating a very heavily traveled road, which is private. To me, I'm just looking at that's taking advantage of the association and their goodwill in maintaining this road. It will wear out, and they're going to be on the hook for as far as repairing this. I go to Walgreens quite a bit over a year. I've been hit almost once a month almost there trying to turn on to Pioneer. What a mess I'm seeing right now as far as there's 2 ways. You have at your peak hours 252 trips peak. That comes down to 4 a minute, 1 every 15 seconds. Well, they're only going to go out 2 ways. You're either going to go out on Pioneer or you're going to go up the private road. And I'm looking at this traffic as an absolute disaster. I don't even know what else to say about the traffic on that because even the way it is right now, it's deadly. And if you sit there and look at with the traffic, now you have the daycare. Let's just go down a little bit further. Let's go down to Walgreens a little, as far as down further from it. Well, now when those people come out here onto the road, which is already a problem, they're all going to have little kids in their car too on top of this. I'm seeing problem after problem after problem. I'm surprised that you're amazed that the Planning Commission voted 8-0 as far as, on it. I guess if it was as good as you're putting it across, they would not have voted it down 8-0.
I appreciate your enthusiasm. It'd be great if, especially during the time when the 5 council members are sharing, that we don't create a situation where some get the applause and some don't, but go ahead. Anything else, Mr. Freiberg?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Nelson, Councilmember Nelson, do you want to have another go at it?
Only very briefly, as I did put in information, though, that I thought needed to be on the record.
Absolutely. Not taking that away from you
At this point, I do have questions about the size. This isn't a Costco type situation. It's a smaller neighborhood, and I think your center in a different part of Eden Prairie might be very welcome at a higher level of community. This one, I don't believe it really fits with. And so I'm not inclined, I guess, to differ from the Planning Commission at this point. I don't think we're going to make any decision on that tonight, but this is a very large situation. It's not what was envisioned in neighborhood community. It's more community or the major center area I forgot it again. But it doesn't seem like it's a fit for this particular neighborhood, especially with this particular road situation. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Narayan.
Thank you. First, I have a couple of questions. It's not clear to me how far away from this development to the nearest home. How many feet away?
Can you ask? Let's start to ask questions of our staff.
Okay.
I think if that's okay.
Yep.
I have rather than have people coming up back and forth.
Yeah, I have a few questions.
Go ahead.
I have just a few questions, so maybe just answer those. Then we can ask my comments later. So do we know how far away is that, the distance from
Are you
the
asking
building?
from the building, from the actual building to the
Building,
closest
yeah, and
residential home?
To the residential home.
I can certainly look that up. But
Go
I
ahead.
don't know off the
Go
top
to
of
your
my
next
head.
question then.
Have we done any kind of noise study? Because I was thinking, when you have a 24-hour operation, today most of that traffic is cars. And having a 16-bay gas station at 2 o'clock in the morning, you may have a whole bunch of trucks coming from 169 getting gas or diesel. So I was wondering, have you thought through that or any feedback on that?
Are you asking staff about the,
Yeah,
the
staff has,
potential for
we
noise
done-
and was anything done?
Yeah.
Mayor, members of the council, there has not been a noise study that has been completed. To answer your first question, the distance is about 65 to 70 feet.
Okay, thank you. And regard to the noise, I was concerned about two type of noise. A car going, that's one level of noise. Truck coming in, getting gas, a second level of noise. Third one is the mechanics that are working in the bay. They're high hydraulic. I can, when you go to a gas station or repair station, you hear them, sound like, psst, really high pitched noise, which is different type of noise. And I was wondering how far is that? Is it going to be annoying to the residents close by?
Good point.
Another question I have is, these gas stations, pumps, they all gas or diesel or both?
Can we ask staff? And then if they need to ask the proponent, they can do that.
I would have to defer that question to the proponent.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Schaffner, do you want to come up and address the type of fuel? Or Mr. Quayle?
Mr. Mayor, council members, Mr. Schaffner has confirmed that there would be a mix of gas and diesel available for customers.
So my assumption is probably right that most of the diesel will be serviced to a truck or larger type of vehicles that coming to do that, right? Am I right?
Mr. Mayor and council member, I would say that's an incorrect assumption. The truth is we don't know. We won't know until the customers show up. There's a number of consumer vehicles that are diesel, as we know, but admittedly, the commercial fleet is skewed more heavily toward diesel.
But as a standard, with the common sense, that we say that most of the time will be a diesel type of vehicle. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I accept your opinion. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, can I just correct a couple of things quickly while I'm here that are just misstatements?
Sure.
I'll be very
Yep,
brief.
go ahead.
First of all, there was a question put to Ms. Klima about the hours of operation for the car wash. I don't know what material she was looking at, but I'm told by Mr. Schaffner that it's 10 p.m. It's not a 24-hour operation for car wash. Secondly, he wanted to confirm to you, the comment was made that there was no effort made to reach out to the HOA or to the neighbors. Mr. Schaffner has confirmed to me that there were in fact 3 different opportunities to meet with neighbors. I don't know how many people showed up. Of course, we were working through COVID during those time periods, so it may not have been as accommodating as everybody might have liked, but I wanted you to know that there were multiple attempts made to reach out to neighbors. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
I have one more question to the staff. I haven't heard today about trees and tree removals. It's very unusual for any development. We don't hear that. So can you just explain what the status is on that?
Mayor, members of the council, with this application, are tree replacement requirements that would apply for the removal of the trees that are proposed to be taken down to accommodate the proposed development, and there are landscaping standards that are required based on the size and scale of the building. The plan that is presented to you this evening does meet the requirements for tree replacement. They are replacing the number of trees on site that they are required to for this development. However, a unique factor here is the fact that there were tree replacement requirements that have been deferred to this property from previous versions, if you will, or previous phases is a better word, previous phases of the Bluff Country Village in the amount of about 705 caliper inches. And the developer is proposing that he would meet that requirement through payment in lieu options.
Okay, Thank you so much. So just my comment, couple of concerns. I think a couple of my colleagues already brought it up. I'm concerned as well the size and the 24-hour operation. I'm concerned that traffic is coming from 169, 2 o'clock in the morning to serve this then local community. The other part I am concerned is our we are trying to promote electric vehicle, zero carb emission, our sustainability plan, all that. Then here we are approving a 16-bay gas station. The future of Eden Prairie is carbon neutral. So having some difficulty in terms of long term, how that strategically work in our plan perspective. I'm also concerned about the noise of the operation. That's all my comment right now.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Toomey.
Thank you. I happen to agree with most of the comments that everybody's made up here. I do have one question for Ms. Klima. Of the 3 gas stations that are considered to be in neighborhoods, they were there before the neighborhoods were built, correct?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, that I can't confirm without further research.
Okay. I know the one in my neighborhood was there for a while, since the 50s at least. But so I do, I agree with everybody. I'm concerned about the noise. I'm concerned about the safety and the traffic. And I think it would be irresponsible to support right now this project. It's just too big. I went over and also walked the property, and the proximity to the homes, especially on Bridge Hill Terrace, it would be horrible. I mean, it would not be a good thing to have that. It's just too close. It's too big and it's too close, and especially when what Councilmember Narayan said about with electric vehicles coming in, it would be irresponsible to support something like this, I believe. So that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Narayan.
Yeah, I just have one more concern is when you have that size operation with mechanics and the gas, oil, I was concerned about the pollution as well, the gas pollution and the oil pollution. I just want to bring it up. I don't know, have anybody talked about, is there any, well, that's just my concern.
Okay. All 5 of us have shared. I think it's pretty apparent where people are at. I do want to underscore, and again, we're talking here in the first time that 5 of us have ever gotten together to talk about this issue. So it's hard in the moment. You all are witnessing government in action where we are thinking this through fresh in the moment. As I said before, something will go in here. It does have a neighborhood zone to it. It currently permits a gas station, but I wanted to quote something that Mr. Quayle, the attorney, had said, that our current zoning policies allow for flexibility that this proponent is seeking, but I want to underscore something. It also allows for flexibility of the council to judiciously evaluate the intensity of the use and the size and impact of the use and the unique circumstances that require variances and waivers within this use. So yes, that flexibility is there on the proponent side. It's also there on the council side to look at this project and say, yes, in general, a gas station legally could go in there, but it doesn't define the intensity and the impact of that. And that's what I think we're looking at today. I don't know if we're struggling with that idea, but we're trying to weigh the idea that certain things can go into this this site, and someday will. At the same time, this particular project doesn't not only feel, and that's not a great legal term, doesn't feel like a good fit, but there are reasons in a technical way that we feel it's not an appropriate use for this site to have this much intensity, and the variances and the waivers confirm that to us. So here's what we need to do tonight. We had two options. One is to vote to approve, and the other is to vote to direct staff, meaning primarily our attorney, that has heard everything that we've said and would take back and develop findings that she would then bring back to us. So we'll deny it tonight. That's not correct. I'm looking at you carefully. Let me read what I'm supposed. So prepare findings for denial. We will not deny it tonight. We will direct staff to prepare the findings for denial, PUD concept review, and then you'll bring that back to us, I believe, at the very next meeting.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And we do it that way so you can see what I've prepared and make sure it's consistent with what you've discussed tonight. And, it's not an automatic approval. It's my interpretation of what you're telling me now, and the council needs to make sure that's exactly the findings it wants to make.
So, council, with that in mind, if you have any other final comments or questions, I'll go ahead and let you speak and open that up. If not, if somebody would make a motion, it sounds like from what you all said on option 2, I'll leave that again up to you, but if there is somebody that's okay to go ahead and do that.
Yep. I move to close the public hearing.
That's been closed. That's okay.
And
second,
direct staff to prepare finding for denial of the PUB concept review, the PUD district review with the waivers, the preliminary plat, and the site plan.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Again, thank you for your participation tonight and for, I want to say your behavior. It sounds like I'm a retired 6th grade teacher, which I am. But I do appreciate you and the proponent as well. Appreciate that you wanted and still want to be in the city, and that may work out. We hope that it can. Possibly another site at that point. All right. We do have 2 more public hearings. Is there anyone that would appreciate maybe a 5-minute break? Yeah. I think so.
Take 5.
By the way, open meeting law, just be really careful. We have, okay. So
I'll go that way. Okay.
All right.
You just go. Okay, if you're going that way, I'll
great.
go that way.
We'll recess for 5 minutes.
Well, I'm the only girl, so they can come.
In about 15 seconds, sir, we'll get going. All right. Moving on to our second public hearing of the evening, Asian Plaza. Mr. Getchell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Asian Plaza is a new redevelopment project here where the applicant is proposing to repurpose the former Gander Mountain property. So the new Asian Plaza would be used as a retail center with tenant spaces, including retail restaurants and offices. More specifically, and I'm sure we're going to hear from the applicant, the plans include a large main level Asian grocery store with several other tenant spaces and many different Asian themed food services. The building currently does have a mezzanine area of just under 17,000 square feet that they're proposing to expand and provide additional floor area as well. So you'll see then with this project that there is a request for a waiver of parking. They're expanding the usable space within the building. But most importantly, though, we do recommend that the development agreement at a second reading or future consideration would have proof of parking. When we say proof of parking, that means that in the future, if the parking does become a concern, that the applicant will be required to construct some parking at that time. Again, similar to last public hearing, I believe the applicant or representatives of the applicant are here to give you an overview of the project. Staff and the applicant can answer any questions that you have, and you are being asked to hold a public hearing. The Plan Commission voted 7-0 to recommend approval of this project at their June 28th meeting.
Please come forward. Name and where you live.
Good evening. My name is Jay Eisenberg. I live at 8641 Winsdale Street in Golden Valley. I have to say I haven't been more happy to see a room empty out when it was my turn to speak.
Well, don't take it personally. I'm sure they wanted to hear you.
Believe me, I'm nervous enough. This is good. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present the project. I'm serving as a consulting architect. I'm here with the architect of record as well as a group from the owners group as well. And we're pleased to be able to present the project to you for your consideration. I, too, wanted to thank Julie for her earnest and hard work and diligence in getting us to this point. She was invaluable. The presentation, am I going to do a presentation? Oh, there it goes. There's the batteries in this. Okay, let's see if I can make this work. Our presentation will be a summary of the development proposal in support of our request for a PUD parking waiver, the proposed site plan improvements, and the proposed facade improvements. As mentioned by the city manager, the project is the adaptive reuse of the long vacant, now Gander Mountain big box retail building on Technology Drive, and the project concept is the creation of a vibrant regional gathering center celebrating the Twin Cities Asian community. As mentioned, the repurposing of the first floor will contain a mix of retail, restaurant, and will be anchored by a 30,000 square foot Asian grocery store. The restaurants will take up about 5,000 square feet of various tenant spaces. We've got 4 shown in hatch right now, and a potential retail space or service space in the corner. That the tenants, I don't believe, have been signed up yet, but I think it won't be long. The mezzanine level, as mentioned, proposes an expansion of the existing 15,000 square feet by 16,000 additional square feet to create a 4-sided mezzanine. These spaces with a central atrium between it, as shown, and the mezzanine will also contain a mix of uses, including 2 full-service restaurants, Hot Pot City being one of them, smaller food services, a food court, and several retail office tenant support spaces. So the issues we grappled with were the mezzanine expansion, as noted by city manager, triggered requirement, quite a bit of additional parking. And so the request for a PUD parking waiver is part of our proposal. The facade improvements also triggered a site plan review, which led us to look at site plan improvements. And planning staff also requested a structural review of the existing foundation, footing, and piling system to make sure that it would adequately support the proposed mezzanine expansion. We did prepare that report that was supplied to everyone, and I don't know if you have reports. It's clearly you can have that. So the results of that particular report are that the existing conditions will support the proposed mezzanine expansion. Now, the mezzanine addition would require, per the existing zoning code, an additional 92 parking spaces on a site that's already at capacity. And this is the reason why we're requesting a PUD parking waiver. Therefore, a parking demand and traffic study was commissioned through Alliant Engineering, and the table you're looking at the right is basically a summary of how the calculation was made to indicate that according to existing zoning code requirements that the site is functioning under, which is 4.5 spaces per 1,000 gross square feet, we would need 384 spaces triggered by the mezzanine expansion itself, and that's all. So therefore, that leads us to a 92 parking space deficit. Now, I don't know that we need to get into the weeds. We certainly can. There's a full report that's also available for staff or for council people to look at if you wanted, where the methodology was determined and the results indicating all the traffic counts and the hourly rate and the potential uses of the restaurant spaces and the retail. So in conclusion, I don't want to go through all of these things, but essentially using the data-driven approach required by city engineering and using the Institute of Transportation Engineers manual, the basic results of the study indicate that the parking demand would be accommodated through the existing 294 spaces. And after that last presentation, I guess you're not surprised to hear that result. You've probably heard it many times. However, there is a full report that indicates the methodologies. And as such, in addition to that, no impacts to the surrounding properties and or roadways are anticipated. The site is clearly in a different location than the previous project. So that is the result of that. In addition, a number of the parking waiver should be supported by its alignment with the comp plan, Aspire Eden Prairie 2040. I'm highlighting just a few of these, excuse me, on this slide. I'm sorry, there I go. Just a few of these to call out are Eden Prairie Tomorrow, the idea of creating a welcome and inclusive community through equity and diversity, providing opportunities for community engagement and to celebrate diverse cultures. In terms of land use, we're talking about supporting the preservation and enhancement of existing facilities and their adaptive reuse. Clearly, this is can't find a better example of that. As far as Chapter 5, economic competitiveness, this project is clearly going to be a serious economic driver. It's going to be of regional impact, we believe, and it encourages and supports a diverse retail and restaurant marketplace, and it will increase Eden Prairie's competitive advantage through encouraging unique, attractive destinations. And lastly, I'll bring up the idea of transportation and accessibility, and would highlight what Councilperson Narayanan, excuse me, I'm sorry, my apologies, highlighted in the previous presentation that Eden Prairie is looking to incentivize alternatives to single occupancy vehicle trips, as well as finding ways to reduce single occupancy trips is more important than ever. In that light, not granting this would seriously challenge that notion. And so with that, and then clearly zoning, as I show on page 242 at the end of this slide, zoning and other development regulations are a powerful tool for implementing the plan, and that clearly is in your purview. So with that in mind, I would like to just talk about some of the site plan improvements that we're proposing. They're You can see on the slide, I don't know if you can see in the blue, the highlights of the blue, but we'll be looking at new parking lot striping for customer safety zones, much stronger than they are now at the main entrance. I don't have a pointer, right? I do? No, okay. There's a flaw in the system. And at the lower level parking area, which you can see at the top of the screen, there are 77 current parking spaces below grade covered, and there are 217 on site. But we'll be striping those for clarity and pedestrian safety. We're talking about a new colored concrete pedestrian walkway highlighted in red along one of the parking aisles. You've seen that in some other developments in the city. We will be adding bike storage racks near the entry. We would be converting an existing parking aisle into an island with raised planting. We'll be providing, at this point, 2 level 2 EV stations in the covered parking area with the opportunity to expand that as EV stations are more required and electric vehicles are exploding on the landscape. The owners have also indicated they will review the possibility of a solar array on the building, but they're looking at that in a more near future time frame, 5 years or so like that, once the project is well underway. And there is a feature we're calling the hexagonal pavilion, which is meant to be a lovely public space, gathering space near the entry. At this point, the proposal is not part of the proposal because that in and of itself requires an additional variance due to increase in impervious pavement. So we'll hopefully be bringing that next year for your consideration. And lastly, as mentioned, we're indicating in the right side of the site plan a potential location for a future covered parking spot per the likely development agreement that was part of our proof of parking discussion. The owners have discussed that as a commitment they would make. However, if you saw the recent article, this slide is really more of a trigger slide, something to think about as we move into the future and consider a number of the things from the 2040 plan and is mentioned in terms of supporting multimodal transportation. You clearly have a transportation hub that can serve in a more increased manner as we develop methodologies for dealing with reducing individual car trips and and automobiles as a source of movement. And I don't really need to go into that too much, but I clearly wanted to bring that up as this proof of parking moves forward. I think the owners would commit to any number of initiatives that would do everything possible to avoid building a covered ramp on that site. And if I read the temperature correctly of the Planning Commission, I believe it was their intention or their feel that they too thought that would be not a very good result, even if the mall is successful. I think there are many ways to treat the increase in parking that may be required. But that's for another day. I just wanted to bring that up, a recent article in the Star Tribune. Lastly, we are proposing the revisioning the exterior facades to embody the culture and intended uses within their repurposed building. The outdoor look of the former Gander Mountain facade will be adapted to reflect an inviting Asian theme as reflected in the following exterior elevations. And I think the main thing to say about these, these are the 4 sides that you're seeing, and the material selections that all comply with the requirements for Class 1 and other materials, that the new details and materials and the colors and the culturally related elements proposed will integrate seamlessly, I think, into the majority of the existing materials and the colors while providing a striking and inviting new building vision. We are not tearing this building apart and rebuilding it. We're actually using what's there in, I think, a very advantageous way. With that, just lastly, in terms of the name of the project has been morphed a few times, but my understanding is the official name will be the Asia Mall, but maybe not. So with that, that concludes my brief presentation, and I'm here, the architect of record is here, and the owners group is also here. So at this point, we're open to questions.
So, council, we have some choices here. We can hold the public hearing, or you can get some questions asked now, or you can hold them until after the public hearing. What's your pleasure?
Public hearing.
Have the public hearing?
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and have that then. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that would wish to address the council on the Asia Mall, as long as it's the Asia Mall for now, project before us this evening? All right, let's go ahead and close the public hearing, then I'll ask you just if there are any questions or comments, and then we might be close to a vote. So, close the public hearing motion.
I just have a couple of questions. Oh, close it?
Please.
Okay. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed? No one. So, yes, let's start. We'll head down the line. Go ahead, Councilmember Toomey.
I was just wondering what other types of businesses are going to be in besides food. I went out there with the mayor, and at that time there was talk about a school going in there and a bank, and I was just wondering.
Go ahead and give your name and your address.
Sure. My name is Jin, last name Chen. I live for Lakefield.
Okay.
So I'm a contractor too, and the part of the building. So I know so far we're talking couple one we have a public PCA for accounting going to that, and the broker for agent selling the house. We try to invite the haircut people for Asian people haircut salon. We have a couple in a franchise restaurant like a bubble tea shop. We don't have anything bubble tea shop here. So we've been taught to the bubble tea shop. The bank probably not going to there right now because it's too small for them. The building not bigger for them. So we do have all the different Asian Friday food coming in. Maybe have a Thai food. For sure have a ramen noodle for Japanese food. For sure have a Vietnamese noodle soup, a pho noodle soup. Probably you got eat it before. So, and then we have a hot pot as spicy and cook. You pay whatever food you want and cook in front of yourself. So
nice.
So far that's what we have right now. So probably have more coming in. So
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Toomey.
Thank you for that. So no school is going to go in there.
Probably not school.
No tutoring company or something. Okay. And I think that's it.
We can always come back to you.
Right.
Councilmember, you'd like to go too? Councilmember Ryan, then we'll head down the line.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple of questions to the staff or the developer proponent. Are we going to have any drive-through? No? Okay. That's what I thought. I didn't hear it, so just curious. Any thought in terms of modifying the roof to accommodate solar power?
Go ahead and come to the mic and give your name and address. Thank you.
My name is Zin. Live in Blaine, in Minnesota.
Okay.
So I'm park owner too. So me and Amor, he's on vacation right now. So we talk about it. If we probably plan on 5 years, see if we can put it up there for you guys, for our building there. So
nice. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I heard that we're going to have 2 EV charging stations. So the number of parking space available there, to me, seems lower number, especially when our goal is by 2040, 2050, be carbon neutral. So we want to have more charging stations, and we want to promote more electric cars. And so that I don't know what is the ratio that we are right now. Seems like a lot of smaller development, 10, 12 parking space, we'll have 2. Here, hundreds of parking space, only 2. So there may be an opportunity to increase that number to higher number of EV charging station. And that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to jump on that for a second, piggyback on it. I think it's a great idea. So I think we should maybe not during this proposal conversation tonight, but for a future date with staff, look at where we believe the future world of EV cars is going, because technology is exploding, and we don't want to build all kinds of charging stations and have them be antiquated because you can charge in your car at home and do it in 5 minutes within 8 years. So it's like I'd love to have a workshop at some point, bring in some expert. Where are we heading here, and should we have a ratio that's a sliding down over the next few? You'd think maybe the opposite, but maybe we don't.
Or maybe going
so
up.
I don't want to encumber. Like the parking right now is already super tight. So if you put in EV parking, no one parks in there except an EV car. And already they're super tight. But I like the idea, and so I think that's an offline conversation that's not yet. Maybe we can continue that outside of this project.
Yeah, just one thing I did forget to say. I'm very excited about the development. I love Asian food. So it's being an Indian, the next closest thing you can eat is Asian food. And when you say spicy food, I really got excited. So thank you for considering this, and I think this is going to be a great hit.
Councilmember Nelson.
I'll have to agree. I've had several people ask me when this was going to open. They had been hoping for it a while back, and that they were really quite excited about this coming to Eden Prairie because of the breadth of Asian food that they would have available to them that they really did want. I think all my questions really have been answered. The plans and everything were quite specific, so I like the looks of it, and I like this coming to Eden Prairie.
Councilmember Freiberg.
When I look at this project, I think back to when Gander Mountain went out with all that square footage. It was one of my favorite stores, and I thought, oh no, knowing the location it is and stuff, what can we do with that? I look at what you're doing right here, and I just think outstanding. I mean, it looks good, the concept. I guess we couldn't even hope for more than that. As far as thank you very much for what you're doing. The idea of these sit-down restaurants, that comes up all the time to us, as opposed to fast food. Another big plus, and I wish you well on it. I said it's outstanding.
Yes, just a couple comments. I echo what everyone has said. And when I first met with all of you, I don't know what now, months, it was during COVID, I think, right? We all wore masks, so it had to be last year at some point. But I am so thrilled that you chose Eden Prairie, that you believe that we are welcoming, so welcoming and inclusive, that you wanted to settle here. And I'm very proud that Eden Prairie has about 27% diversity and growing. And the opportunity to have the premier, I think it's statewide, isn't it? Maybe Asian market coming in. I know it's called the Asian Mall, but the Asian market concept coming into Eden Prairie is just really exciting. So thank you for even bringing it this far. Council, any further conversation, or is somebody ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to move to close the public hearing and adopt a resolution for a planned unit development concept review on 4.68 acres. Approve the first reading of the ordinance for a planned unit development district review with waivers on 4.68 acres. Direct staff to prepare a development agreement incorporating staff and commission recommendations and council conditions.
Second.
And the public hearing had already been closed, so that's just not part of that motion. But thank you so much. So any further conversation? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Welcome to Eden Prairie. All right. Thank you. Moving on to our third public hearing, Burger King by Cave Enterprises. Mr. Getchell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Burger King. Burger King, much discussed topic in our community. Both of them, right?
We get asked about it a lot.
We get asked about both of them a lot.
What's happening to our Burger King?
What is going on with Burger King? Well, this is the Burger King on 4 and 5, Eden Prairie Road, Highway 5. And so the applicant for this Burger King is requesting approval to construct a brand new Burger King restaurant with 2 drive-through lanes. As I mentioned, where the property is located, it is highway commercial. There are a few waivers that are being requested, and the applicant is proposing to demolish the existing building and construct the new approximately 3,300 square foot building. The Planning Commission voted 7-0 to recommend approval of the project at their last meeting in June. The applicants are here to provide an overview of their project. Staff and the applicant can answer any questions the council has, and you are being asked to hold a public hearing prior to taking action on the planned unit development concept.
Great. Please come forward, give your name and address. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Kevin Kinney. I'm here representing Cave Enterprises, the franchisee who will be developing the project. I'm the director of operations for Cave, so I'll be responsible for opening and operating the business once we get it open. A little bit about Cave. We are a family-owned company headquartered in Chicago. It's been in operation since 1999. We have grown during that time. We currently operate over 170 locations in 5 states. At present, we employ about 3,500 people. We could use a lot more, frankly. We purchased the right to open 4 Twin Cities Metro restaurants out of bankruptcy from the previous franchisee who had operated and then fell into bankruptcy. So this is one of those 4. The other locations are in Minneapolis and West St. Paul. Our company is very involved in the communities where we do business. We love to partner with local organizations and schools. We look forward to being a strong partner in the Eden Prairie community if the project comes to fruition. A couple of things that we're known for: we partner with Special Olympics. We also have a partnership with the VFW through donation canisters in our stores, and various other charitable foundations that we support. We're very excited to get back into the Eden Prairie community. Believe it or not, I'm asked about this when people find out that I'm from Burger King. The UPS store in Bloomington, the owner is a Eden Prairie resident, and his eyes lit up when he found out that we were looking at reopening this location.
Mine did too.
So we're excited. Our goal is to operate this business at an A level and to be a good partner and somebody that you can be proud to have in your community. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Doomer from Coma Architects. He'll take you through the project and the elevations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kevin Doomer. I'm from Coma Architecture Firm. We're located at 2051 Killebrew Drive, right next to the Mall of America. And just wanted to mention that of all the franchisee owners that I've worked with, Cave Enterprises is one of the best out there. They really care about their locations and their community, and they try to make sure that they hire the best people they can and provide the best service and care about their buildings and their properties more than I've seen a lot of franchisee owners. So you should feel very privileged to have Cave Enterprises as part of this project. And they're very excited for this location and revitalizing this building. I'm sure if we have the presentation that we can put up. There we go. And let's go through here. So this just a brief overview of the building. So yeah, we're going to be getting rid of the old building, and we're trying to keep up with the times. They're trying to put up a nice, modern, new building. This is actually the new flagship building of all of the type of branding efforts that they put towards the building. This is one of the top of the line that they offer, and to make it accommodate the requirements of Eden Prairie, this is going to be a unique building, first of its kind, to have the type of materials that we're using. We're very excited to use this as a great new prototype to promote the brand. In the back portion of the canopy, all of the mechanical equipment, everything is well hidden behind the roof, so it'll be very clean, streamlined, and have lots of nice big windows for the dining experience. Here's just some of the side elevations and some of the materials. Also, the owner is very advocate about trying to promote movement and getting children to, play and be outside. So we're looking at adding a playland and very specifically put it outside to help promote fresh air and give the kids a nice place to play. And they're looking at putting a very nice playground set in a protective area for the children. And it's got protective mats and everything underneath to keep everybody safe. Here's just a simple floor plan. We brought the trash enclosure right up next to the building, and it's covered and easy to get to and keep all that stuff nice and tidy. Very simple design. We've also got dual restrooms located. They're only required to put in single bathrooms, but we found that the customers like the convenience of the dual, and we made sure that there's baby changing stations. I have 3 young kids, and I definitely appreciate that. And for the site, we are going to be building it basically in the same location with the easements and everything involved. This is just the best location for it. Also, with the way that the business has evolved, we have reduced the amount of paved surfaces and amount of parking. It's just the amount that's there now is just not needed. So we're just going to cut it back and bring back more landscaping and upgrade, all of the trees and everything involved. We also are excited about the coffee shop that's going in just to the east of here. We feel like the way their hours of operation, our hours of operation will work very well together as far as the drive-through demands. We're allowing them, easement through our property and also connections with sidewalks, and feel like a very good relationship between the 2 properties. And we don't have our landscape architect on board, but here's a list of some of the local landscaping that they're providing to meet all of the requirements. And I think there's just like a utility plan that just shows some of the easements that were mentioned. And as far as some of the sustainability items for the site, that we'll be trying to reuse the existing base. They're, like I already mentioned, we're reducing the impervious surfaces, reducing the amount of parking to what we need. We are going to be incorporating some bicycle parking, the native species for the site. We're also going to be exceeding the energy code requirements. We're going to be including continuous insulation on the outside of the building, so we've got a high R value in the walls and the R30 on the roof, so it's a very energy efficient building. We've got a reflective PVC membrane that works very well for reflecting some of the heat that could be possibly building up on the roof to help with that energy efficiency, and all the equipment exceeds some Energy Star requirements. Some other sustainability components, we're using some Nichiha wall panels as part of some of the decorative elements. Those are made with a lot of recycled content. It's a very durable product that's low maintenance and built with some low VOC processes. All of the lights will be efficient LED lighting. We will also have low volume faucets throughout the hand washing stations and restrooms. And some of the other interior finishes will be using recycled material. All paint, they like using the low VOC for their customers and for their employees. And some of the other signage will be built with some high efficiency LED systems. And that's it for my presentation. So if you guys have any other questions, just let me know.
Great, thank you. Council, again, this is a public hearing. We could have that first, and then you could ask questions after that, or do you have anything pressing right now? Then let's go ahead and, not sure there's anyone here to speak, but This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to address the council on this issue? All right, seeing none, let me ask this. We might be able to make it all in one motion. So do any of you have questions, comments, things that need to get answered, or are you actually, based on our preparation, prepared to go ahead and make the motion? One question. Go ahead. You know what? Let's close the public hearing first then. Go ahead and make that motion first.
The motion?
To close the public hearing.
The full thing?
Nope, just to close, yeah.
Okay, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Go ahead.
You know, I'm just curious that of the two Burger Kings, and they've been in my life for a while, as far as lots of questions, that I always thought that one would be remodeled, you know, rather than the tear down. The other one looked like a tear down scenario. I was just curious, was that in rougher shape or is it just one of choice, you know, that it couldn't be remodeled? I like the plan, by the way. I like what you got.
Are you talking about the other location or this location?
You don't own the other one, do you?
No, we don't own the other one.
This one that you got, because this one, looked like in a far better shape than the other one. Yeah.
That wasn't until we got inside and looked around, and it had gone through a couple remodels. They put this kind of weird, dining room addition to the front right side, and it's still there, but. The layout was just really goofy and just didn't really work for the site.
Old and rather deceiving.
Yeah, and just the way that the model works now, more people tend to go do the drive-through than in the dining room, and you just don't need that 150 some seats. It's just not. It was never full. So and then there was water issues, like the water was running when we walked into the site, and it was just not worth it. So,
understood. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else?
Might I say I'm glad you're redoing it from what I saw of that building over time. And one would hope some other Burger King restaurateur will do something about the other one.
Well, that'll probably be for sale. Yeah. All right.
Can I just make?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm just going to say this is one of the property that we heard last 3 years. Everywhere when we go to neighbor, they ask, what are you guys doing about that?
Yes.
When are you going to cut the grass? So the new design, architecture, we're very excited. So thank you.
Yeah, we're thrilled. All right, with that, then would somebody make a motion? The public hearing has already been closed. Where are we here? So go ahead and make the rest of it.
I will adopt a resolution for the planned unit development concept review on 1.34 acres, approve the first reading of an ordinance for planned unit development district review with waivers on 1.34 acres, direct staff to prepare a development agreement incorporating staff and commission recommendations and council conditions, authorize the issuance of an early land alteration permit for Burger King at the request of the developer, subject to the conditions outlined in the permit. Authorize the issuance of an early footing and foundation permit for Burger King at the request of the developer, subject to the conditions outlined in the permit.
I second that.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Yay. Good luck to you. Yeah. Thank you so much. All right, payment of claims. Anybody have any items to question? If not, is there a motion for approval?
I move to approve the payment of claim as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Freiberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Narayan.
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Councilmember Toomey.
Aye.
Mayor Case.
Aye. All right. Inclusionary housing, Mr. Getchell.
Thank you, Mayor. As the council is well aware, it's been a couple of years of a lot of meeting, a lot of discussion, creation of a task force to study housing issues and affordable housing. Many workshops and council meetings leads to this point where we have an inclusionary housing policy before you for adoption, and relevant pieces of the policy that will be and should be embedded in city code. Mr. Stanley, Jonathan Stanley, our Housing and Community Services Manager, is here. He was our liaison to that task force. He's here to provide an overview of our new inclusionary housing policy and requirements, and then we ask that you take action to approve first reading of an ordinance for our new inclusionary housing policy and code revisions.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Case, council members. Thank you, Rick, for that thorough introduction to the topic. Actually, a little bit of what I was going to start out with, but I have a very, very brief presentation for you, talking a little bit about the background of what we're doing here, and some of the recommendations. So, jumping right in, by way of background, as Rick mentioned, this is something that has been researched extensively by the staff, the Housing Task Force. We've also done several council workshops where we've talked about inclusionary housing. So I do feel like it's an area that we've really explored all of the pros and cons of. This is a tool that's increasingly used regionally and nationally to create affordable housing. It promotes geographic and socioeconomic equity. It's consistent with Aspire Eden Prairie 2040, and creating the ordinance and the supporting policy will bring more predictability to the process for developers as well as for city staff. Just want to point out a few places. For the most part, the recommendations that are contained in the ordinance and the policy match those of the task force. So as pertains things like all the affordable units being in the same property as the market rate units, all of them having the same interior finishes, things of that nature. Those were all accepted by staff and senior management. But I just wanted to point out a couple areas where the major areas that we have a match, and then a couple places where we're trying to go a little bit of a different direction. So as you may recall, the task force recommendation was to offer developers a choice of 3 different AMI levels to create 5% of units affordable at or below 30%, 10% affordable at or below 50%, or 15% affordable at or below 60% of AMI. And we felt that was very important. That's something we got feedback from developers on, that they'd like to have that flexibility and choice. So we certainly want to adopt that as part of the program. Task Force also recommended that this be applied to developments of 15 or more. We shifted around a little bit on that. We ultimately agree that that's a good number to start with. We're unlikely to see any type of multifamily development that's smaller than that, so this will apply to most multifamily properties we see. And then a couple of the things that are different in what we're proposing tonight. The task force had recommended the term of inclusionary units be in perpetuity, which is something we've done on projects for the last couple of years, but that there be a buyout option after 30 years. And that was really sort of a compromise from the task force, thinking that, perpetuity, we heard from a couple developers that it was a really difficult thing to consider. But we're recommending that we just go forward with the term of inclusionary housing being in perpetuity. We'll be the first city in the region to do so, but it is something that's done across the country in various locations. And we feel that that's an appropriate way to keep affordable stock in the city rather than losing it at a certain point. We also varied a little bit from the task force recommendation in that they recommended a payment in lieu for single-family for-sale detached developments. After getting some feedback from the city council, we are recommending instead that we apply a payment in lieu. They can actually build the units or submit a payment in lieu for attached for-sale developments. That would be things like condos and co-ops, et cetera. And then finally, the task force decided that there should be provision for projects that are receiving TIF to provide some negotiated amount of additional affordability. I don't think that it was that they necessarily envisioned that we go into a negotiation mode, but they just weren't sure how to calibrate it or what maybe the right additional amount of affordability would be. So we're recommending that projects receive TIF must add an additional 5% at or below 80% of AMI, and that those units be kept affordable in perpetuity once again. So in terms of the requested actions tonight, we're requesting that you approve the first reading of an ordinance enacting a new city code, Chapter 13, relating to inclusionary housing, adopt the City of Eden Prairie inclusionary housing policy, and then adopt a resolution amending the comprehensive municipal plan to add the text of the inclusionary housing policy. And with that, I'll take any questions. I think that's the shortest and sweetest presentation I may have ever given.
Good job. Questions, Council? Councilmember Freiberg.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
Single family, okay, for developments over 15. Let's say the project's $500,000 a year, you know, pretty common, $500,000-600,000. How does that fit in?
How does it, I'm sorry?
How's it going to fit, you know, as far as an inclusionary aspect to that?
Well, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Freiberg, that's one thing that we're not recommending is that it apply to single-family detached developments.
Understood.
So,
Up from reading it up there, I just wanted that clarified.
Okay. Certainly.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Other questions? All right. Is there a motion?
I move to approve first reading of an ordinance enacting a new city code, Chapter 13, relating to inclusionary housing. Adopt City of Eden Prairie inclusionary housing policy. Adopt resolution amending the comprehensive municipal plan to add the text of the inclusionary housing policy.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed. All right. Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much.
much.
Thanks for all your time and work with this. And thank the task force as well. All right. I will make this really fast. I know it's getting late. 3 things quickly. I wanted to make a specific honor, actually in terms of proclamation, things like that. It will probably come later. But a specific honor to Kathleen Porta, or Kitty Porta, as we all know her, or as my wife and I say, Kitty from the city. Kitty has been our city clerk for, I think that's the 26 years, but if you add the part-time, it's 33 years working in the city. And if you know anything about townships, clerks are actually one of the elected members of a township. So the city clerk is a big deal, even though in this city statutory Plan B city, it's an appointed position. Kitty has tirelessly, but also so effectively run elections for year after year after year. Phenomenal job running elections. And everyone that works as election judges just sing her praises. So we've been so happy and pleased to have her, but also we've been lucky. Eden Prairie over the years. So Kitty's last day is Friday this week, August 20th. So I just wanted to give a call out to Kitty from the city. And then the second thing is that I have been getting, and I'm sure you have too, more and more and more complaints from people on both sides of the runway that their belief, their perception, and I know it's reality, that the planes and the noise are increasing. So I know there's, with all my history of working against airport expansion since 1995, I know we're very, very limited in what we can do, but there are some things, and we need to get really, really good at communication at this time because the perceptions that things are changing, and we need to get out to people to let them know the lay of the land, that we're knowledgeable about it. We've been working on it all these decades, and we're continuing to work on the issue of good relations with our airport, but also surviving the increase in noise and air traffic. So, with your pleasure and your support, I'd like to have Mr. Getchell bring this through Chief Scott Gerber back to the Airport Advisory Commission and task them with coming up with a plan, with a communication plan soon, ASAP, to begin to disseminate information and maybe make ourselves available, possibly even part of that, some type of a open city council forum. I'm not sure about that yet, but I think we need to move on it because I think people, especially with summers outside, people are very cognizant that the numbers of aircraft have increased. Sadly, according to predicted plan, but that doesn't change the fact that we need to get out there ahead of it and communicate better. Okay, so is that okay to direct staff? Okay. Third, Many of you have driven along Anderson Lakes Parkway across from Eden Lake Elementary, and you've maybe seen the trees completely cut down on a piece of property. And it's a pie-shaped property that actually impacts both neighbors, but primarily the one neighbor. And they did it completely legally. So my concern, and I would like to ask Mr. Lotthammer and Mr. Getcho just to go back and then maybe bring back to us at a future meeting. I mean, there's no rush on it now in terms of this property, but I would like to know our tree preservation policy. We have it currently that you can do anything you want under half acres lots. I understand that. I don't want to impede private landowner rights. But I would like the city possibly to have a way to be involved in the conversation prior to that landowner doing that, where they have forced conversations with neighbors, even if it's, I'm going to do this, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it. But I'd like to think there might even be a way that we could do something, including maybe keeping tree cutting off of the utility easements on either side of a lot. There are just some things I want investigated, and just to look at, and maybe the investigation turns up that our tree preservation policy is perfect in its current state, and that this kind of situation we can't do anything about. So is that okay also to have staff again go back through, I don't know if that's maybe through Parks and Rec, I'm not sure, but at least have that conversation take place. That's all I've got. Anybody else have anything to come before the council this evening? It's been a longer meeting than normal. It's been a pleasure being with all of you this evening. Did a good job with 3 public hearings tonight. So, and thank you, staff, for all your tireless work as well. So, with that, is there a motion for adjournment?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned.